Hey guys, Tyler here. I wanted to address something. I have a student right now who is preparing to write her LQP exams, and there's a lot of stress. So I figured instead of just writing out an email and sending her a bunch of advice, I said, hey, why not put together a video and send it out to anybody who is struggling with stress right now when it comes to writing an exam. I got a few different tips. One, breathe. Take that moment, take that beat. Every question, trust me, you have 4 seconds to spare on every question. Breathe in, hold, exhale. Don't even count. I don't care. There's the square breathing where you breathe in for so many seconds and hold it and then breathe out and then hold it, breathe in. There's also breathing where you breathe out longer than you inhale. All of that doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. The purpose isn't to get caught up on how to breathe properly. Just give it some conscious attention. Just breathe. This is going to activate what's called your parasympathetic nervous system, right? When you stress, your amygdala kicks in, right? This is what's responsible for your sympathetic nervous system. It's sympathetic that you're about to get eaten by a bear or attacked by a coyote or tracked down by a bobcat. But none of these things are happening. This is just superficial stress. It's just an exam. It doesn't matter. Right? It really doesn't matter. If you fail, okay, so you write it again. Okay, so you have to pay again. Okay, it's not a big deal. You're not going to die. You're not going to starve. There's not going to be any physical pain. No physical damage to your body is going to occur, right? But your amygdala is trying to kick in and save you. What you want is your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's responsible for the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, healing, zen, all of that stuff. You want that part of your brain to be in control of the steering wheel of how your brain functions. And the easiest way to do that is just, that's a big one. I know this is going to be a little bit of a longer video. I'm already at 2 minutes here, and that's just the first point, but that's okay. I think these are some important tips. The next one is when you're reading an exam, I really like the approach of what I call the BCA approach. The BCA approach is if you break down the question into 3 parts. There's the body of the question, right? Tom and Jane went up the hill and bought a house and they need this life insurance and whatever. All the content, the body, the story, the context of the question. B is the question. How much insurance should they buy? What should they do next? What is a good investment choice, etc. The sentence that ends in a question mark, right? That's section B. Section C is the answers. A, B, C, D. My suggestion, if you remember the order, was B, C, A. So skip the body of the question for now. We'll come back to it. Read the question. What's actually being asked? If the question is, what is Tyler's favorite color? And your options are a bunch of colors, and you go and reading the body of it and you realize, oh, Tyler was born on a Thursday back in 1982 when he got diabetes when he was in grade 7 and his favorite color is. You're like, that's all I need to know. So otherwise, when your brain is going through and you're reading the body of the question, there's going to be a lot of information in there that might be important, right? If you're a good listener, you're going to grab all these pieces of information that a human is telling you in a conversation. Like, oh, that might be important. They like chihuahuas, whatever. But when you're reading the question, it's not all important. This isn't a person. This isn't a friend. You're not having a conversation. You're learning to dissect. You need laser point of view to be able to, that's important, right? Focus on what's relevant and what's not, being able to shift through that information. So when you're looking at it, it's a lot easier if you know that the question is, what is the color? When it's talking about all those things that are not his favorite color, you know, irrelevant, 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 relevant, right? Otherwise, if you're reading an A, B, C, you might be like, ooh, that might be important, and it's going to take some spotlight. If you think of your mind like a stage, right? Your brain works much better with spotlights than floodlights, right? It's really hard to have so many actors on stage and trying to pay attention to everything. Multitasking doesn't work. It's been very well documented in cognitive science and in just brain awareness anyways, that multitasking doesn't work. Task shifting is what we do. And some people shift from one task to the other very good, and this is something that we become less good at in general as you get older, but nobody's ever multitasking, right? not cognitively anyways. Obviously you can rub your belly and top your head at the same time. Well, maybe I can. But you know what I'm saying. You can't be solving one problem and the other. You can put things in the subconscious. You can take things out of the spotlight, but you can't focus on multiple things at once. So don't try, right? Focus on what's relevant. Go through that body and be like, this is relevant, this isn't. When you're reading the questions, some of the answers are just going to be wrong, right? For example, if you see something like a segregated fund is sold by a financial institution, no, segregated funds can only be sold from insurance companies. That answer is wrong. There's nothing in the body of the question that's going to change that answer. Be like, but Tyler's favorite color is, no, that's not going to change the answer. That answer is wrong. You can cross it out. You now have a 25% better chance of guessing the right answer, right? Eliminate the answers that aren't right. The other thing is when you're going through the answers, if you see a comma, an and, a but, a because, a however, this is now what I call a 2-point answer. And it needs both points to have any points. Here's what I mean by that. If you have a question that is, let's say, why does the sun come up in the morning? I don't know, just made up a question off the fly. And one of the answers is due to the rotation of the earth around the sun. Well, okay, that's true, right? 1 point for that. If obviously one of the question is because Tyler's favorite color is blue, that's not the correct answer. It's not even relevant to the question. So we can cross that one out. But one of it is, due to the rotation of the earth around the sun because, and it goes into some sort of explanation that goes a little bit further that's also correct. Again, nothing's coming off mine. Might have chosen a better topic. That's fine. So if you have a better answer, right, and gives you 2 points, that answer is better than a 1-point answer. So keep that in mind. The other thing is sometimes an answer is a true statement, but not the answer to the question, right? For example, if Tyler's favorite color was blue, and let's say one of the answers is Tyler's favorite color is blue, and you're like, hey, I know that that's correct, but the question is, what is 1 plus 1? Well, yes, it's a true statement, right? It's not a wrong statement, but it's not the answer to the question. And that's why it's really important to go back. Some of the other things that I recommend is when you're reading the question, right, that section B, read that a minimum of twice. Read it at least twice, because sometimes your brain is going to add words that aren't there or miss words that are there, right? So read that at least twice. And section A, right, that body of the question, the story, the context, read that a maximum of thrice. If you've read it 3 times and you still don't know what your answer is, let your subconscious mind take over, right? Choose an answer. Don't leave it blank. Choose an answer. Choose C. I don't care. C, right? Be like, that's question 17. Write that down. 17, we're going to go back to that at the end of the exam, right? Move on. At the end of your exam, if you have time, there's a question in there you're going to probably get wrong, but you got a 25% chance of guessing the right answer. Maybe even a 33% chance if you've eliminated A as one of the answers. That's not the right answer. Now you got a 33% chance. Still, now is when you go back, you look for it, and you're like, I totally missed. That was the piece of information that I was needing. Go back to it. That's another trick that really helps. The other one is those who are math adverse. They don't like math, right? Numbers scare them. Their brain turns off. Their amygdala turns on. They're like, panic, danger, danger. If you're one of those people, if you're reading the question and you've read B, C, A, and you realize it's not a math question, right? What is Tyler's favorite color? And the colors are the options. That's not a math question. If you're going up and you're reading the body of the question and says, Tyler was born in this year. He has this amount of money in his investments and his life insurance is worth this amount and this amount and this amount. Instead of reading the numerical value, replace the numerical value with the word number. This is, again, a little trick to deflect your amygdala from turning on, right? And keeping your prefrontal cortex engaged. Right? So Tyler's house is worth number. He has numbers in segregated funds. His cash surrender value is number. His adjusted cost basis is number. Literally say number instead of reading the numerical value. This, again, if you know that numbers are one of those things that your amygdala freaks out about, you stress out about, you're like, numbers, math, scary, danger, right? Keep that in mind. Change it to the word number, and you're going to override your brain in regards to those things. So there's a few tips. Hopefully that helps. Circling back to my first suggestion, breathe. Every question, right? You get to that question, you're like, completed question number 1, you go to question number 2. What's the first thing you do? Breathe. Just breathe. So hopefully those tips help. I wish you the best of luck, and I would love to know if any of this advice is helpful, as well as if you have any other suggestions or tips or tricks that have worked well for you. Love to hear them. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Thanks, everyone.